This is a complete CSS clip path tutorial for front-end developers. In the next 5 minutes, you'll learn CSS clip path in 3 real skill levels: beginner, intermediate, and advanced. CSS clip path lets you create modern UI shapes and visual effects using only CSS. One important mistake: many tutorials recommend using path in clip path, even though it still has limited browser support. In this video, I'll show you the correct production-safe way to use CSS clip path in real front-end projects. We'll start the video with the first, most basic level of using clip path. Isn't it common to use the border radius property when you want to round a frame or image? I'm sure this is the simplest and best method. But if we now encounter a more complex requirement, this is where the circle function in clip path becomes superior. By default, the circle will have a radius of 50%. But if you want it smaller, around 30%, this is the result. By default, the circle will have its center at the center of the element with x coordinate equal to 50% and y coordinate equal to 50%. If you want to move the center of the circle, just change it right here. These are things that border radius can never do. And that's how people still use clip path in the first level. Now let's move on to level 2. Let's move on to the Polygon function. Any element has 2 coordinate axes, x and y. Both axes have a magnitude from 0% to 100%. So if you want to cut an element into any shape you can think of, what you need to do is define the point you want to cut. For example, I choose the first point with coordinates x equal to 50%, y equal to 0%. The second point has x equal to 100% and y equal to 100%. The next point has coordinates 0% and 100%. When these 3 points are connected, it will create a triangle. That's the shape we cut. In this way, you can create any shape you want. All you need is to clearly define where you want to cut. It's perfect until we realize that the points where they meet are always sharp. A modern design will always have situations that require rounded corners. That's what we need to know about level 3. If you've ever researched this topic, you've probably heard people suggest using the path function in CSS to create this curve. And this is a disastrous mistake. The path function is completely forbidden in real-world projects. The first reason is browser compatibility. These are the browsers that the path function supports. Obviously, it supports most popular browsers today. But in reality, that's not the case. To date, Firefox, Safari, and Safari iOS browsers support it, but they frequently have errors. The path function doesn't display stably on these browsers. That alone is enough to conclude that the path function cannot be used at the moment. But we still have a second reason. Similar to the Polygon function, the principle for shaping an element is to define the position where we want to cut it using x and y coordinates. However, the difference lies in the fact that while the coordinate values in the Polygon function range from 0% to 100%, the values in the path function are measured in pixels. For example, in this case, its x coordinate is from 0 to 300, and its y coordinate is from 0 to 300 pixels. This is the crux of the matter. Pixels are a rigid unit, and using this unit in design will make responsive design difficult. So, is there a way to use the path function in percentages? The answer is no. Therefore, we will look at an alternative solution instead of the path function. I will continue using clip path, but with the function value being URL. Inside it will contain an ID. You can name it anything. Through HTML, I declare an SVG element with width 0 and height 0 so that it doesn't change the design layout. Inside, I will use the clip path tag with the InMyClip, which will create the x and y coordinate axes. The clip within its object-object bounding box will fix the x and y coordinate axes with a magnitude from 0 to 1, equivalent to 0% to 100%. The path is where we will draw the connecting points. We have solved the coordinate unit problem. Now I will proceed to find the points to draw. The character term is used to define the first position. Use the character to connect a straight line to the next coordinates. First, let's connect the coordinates to create the desired shape. Then, we can create the curve. If the letter L helps connect two straight lines, then the letter Q helps create a curve. But the question is, how will the curve be curved? The nature of a curve is that it has a point in the middle, and this point determines the direction and degree of curvature. So in this case, this will be the point I choose to curve. We just need to define its x-coordinate, y-axis. And this is our result. In this way, you can completely bend other positions. Compared to the path function, this method supports browsers much better and is more responsive. This is the final content of this video. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch and follow the channel. If you have any questions or want to discuss anything about the next topic, feel free to leave a comment. We will share our thoughts on it together. And see you in the next video.